Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the congregation of Yahweh for our Sabbath service. Today we're going to be doing something not really different from what I typically do, but yet still a little different from what I typically do. Everybody knows that my thing is all about the kingdom, and I think I've made that pretty clear, and that's the frame point that I come from and the reference that I come from. And today I'll be talking about a very special topic called love. All right. Many of us may remember the Beatles. You know, they said all we need is love, right? Okay. But I think Foreigner was probably a little bit more honest when they said, what did they say? I want to know what love is. Okay. Well, we're not going to get into Nazareth right now. And that's what we're talking about today, an explanation of what love is, all right? I hope you want to know what love is as well. But to understand love, we have to go beyond popular culture and modern thought processes. In our modern Western mindset, we're full of abstract thoughts. We're full of abstract words, meaning, you know, you could have a word like love, and it can mean so many different things, all right? When I say abstract, I mean there's no concrete thought or idea there. Concrete ideas are easier to show because they're more solid, they're more definite. So as we talk about love, we're going to talk a more concrete idea of what love is rather than, you know, just our typical understanding of love. In talking about love, I'm not talking about romance. Okay? In Greek, that word would come from the word eros. This is where the word erotic comes from. So we're not going to talk about the emotional type of love. And also, we're not going to talk about our fondness for things or the things that we're attracted to. This would be the phileo. In Greek, this would be the phileo type of love, you know. And we don't want to get into that part either, because we get words like philanthropy. You know, philanthropist is supposed to be a person who loves people. You know, we get audiophiles, people who love music, okay? And this is just something that we like. It's something that we are attracted to, something that we gravitate to. But it's not a real true definition of what love is. The love we're talking about today in the Greek would be called agape. In Hebrew, it's called hab. In English, we simply call it love. This is a problem that we have in the English language. There's so many different ways that we can use the word love. In English, we love our family and our friends. In English, we love our cars and our homes. In English, we love little puppies and kitties. In English, we love food and art and entertainment. All of these loves can't possibly mean the same thing. But this is where we're dealing with a weakness in the English language, because love just can be used so many different ways. Scripture comes to us into English by way of 4 different languages: Greek, Hebrew, and lesser used Latin and Aramaic. If we're going to truly understand what love is, we're going to have to, from time to time, use Greek and maybe some of these other languages as stepping stones to actually get back to the Hebrew meaning of what love is. There is evidence to suggest that many of the books in what we call the New Testament were actually written in Hebrew, but we don't have any of the manuscripts to prove that. But the original, but fortunately, we have the Septuagint. The Septuagint is a translation of the Hebrew text that was done about 300 BC. So over 2,000 years ago. And we're going to make extensive use of the Septuagint to help us out. All right, so I'm going to pull up one of my tools. I have a couple of tools that I use fairly regularly. All right, so what I've done here is I've attempted to make these letters really big. So can everybody see that? All right. So this particular view is of the King James Version. And then I have another. This is a resource called eSword. And one of the reasons why I really like eSword is not only does it allow me many, here you can see this bar up here. Those are all the different versions that I have access to just in this one app. Several, many, okay? And do I use all of them all the time? No, but I use them for reference, all right? But what this one does have that I use mostly for reading is the TS 2009. And one of the things I really like about this is this information box here. Let's get it. So this actually gives you information on each of the versions and why they are the way they are. If you're going to use a tool, you might as well know how they came about the design that they particularly have. Now, some of the older ones, King James Version, Bishop Bible, the Geneva Bible, these are several hundred years old. So there may not be this type of information. This is more recent. The people who developed these, they are still here among us. So we can get all the information that we need to get out of these. So this is one of my tools. And I have another one. Now this is a very simple tool. This one is called the Power Bible. And what I like about this one so much, I'm going to make this one big. Let's go to a Bible. All right, now this one doesn't have nearly as many versions of the Bible, but it has several things that make it quite easy to use. And sometimes that's what I'm mostly looking for is something that's easy to use. So when it comes to versions, it only has a few. So it has King James, American Standard, all of your run-of-the-mill versions of the Bible. But this one has an interlinear feature that I use a lot. And if you could see here in green, inside the greater than and less than symbol, this gives you the word in the original language, whether it be Greek or Hebrew or whatever language that is. You can mouse over it, it gives you information. If you click on it, it gives you additional information. These numbers here are called Strong's numbers. So there was a man named James Strong. He went through maybe 200 years ago, and he took every word that was either in the Hebrew version or the Greek version of the scriptures, and he gave an English word that corresponds to it. And in many cases, you'll see, so what he did is he created a concordance. If you're dealing with these tools, you got to know what they are and how they're used, okay? A concordance is not a dictionary, but many people go through the concordance and pick out words saying, this is what that word means. That's actually wrong. Don't use a concordance as a dictionary. What this is he said this word rab is used all these different ways when it was translated from Hebrew to English, whether right or whether wrong. So there could be some mistranslations in here that would be shown under Strong's, but you have to take some of it with a grain of salt because it's just dealing with a word to another word. Whether it's right or whether it's wrong, it doesn't matter. He just wanted to be accurate and he wanted to be complete, and that's what he did. So don't use a concordance as a dictionary because it's not. All right? Now, in my other tool, actually it might be some in here, lexicons. Nope. So this one wouldn't be for that. So let me go ahead and minimize this. So going back to this one, on the side over here, let me get rid of this box. I have dictionaries. So if I want to know what a word actually means, I'll go to Brown Driver Briggs, or I'll go to Thayer, or one of the other references to actually get a definition of a word. Because, like I said, a concordance is not a dictionary. It just simply shows word usage, whether it's right or whether it's wrong. All right. So everybody clear on that? I just wanted to kind of do a little bit of a, all right. So in talking about love, let me get back over here. We're going to go to John chapter 4, verse 8. All right, and this is going to be in the TS. Excuse me. Is that supposed to be John or 1 John? Let's see. I think it might be 1 John, but I might have not written it right. Yeah, 1 John. The first book of John. 1 John chapter 4, verse 8. All right, so I'm going to read a little bit back on this. So the name of this section, they put this isn't in the actual scriptures. This is just a section heading to help the reader, okay? Beloved ones, let us love one another, because love is of Elohim, and everyone who loves has been born of Elohim and knows Elohim. The one who does not love does not know Elohim, for Elohim is love. I think everybody's heard that scripture before. All right. So I'm a mathematical kind of guy, and one of the things that helps me is where I see this word is, sometimes I just kind of put in an equal sign so that you can know that when you see love, you're really seeing Elohim, and when you're seeing Elohim, you're really seeing love. Okay? So this gives us an equation. My point in this, if the definition that you use for love does not equal Elohim, you might want to look at another definition for what love is, because he is the definition of love. All right? We have, like I said, in our modern philosophical way of looking at things, we don't really have a concrete idea, but this gives us a concrete idea. If it doesn't look like Elohim, it's not love. I think it's really simple. All right? Let's go to, I would love to read all of 1 John 4. Anybody want me to read 1 John 4? Sure. If we don't have the time for it, we don't. I understand. All right, I have a request. All right, I'm going to go. I'm going to run with it. Beloved ones, do not believe every spirit, but prove the spirits whether they are of Elohim, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this you know the spirit of Elohim. Every spirit that confesses Yeshua Messiah has come in the flesh is of Elohim. So this is telling you, when you meet somebody or you hear of something, you got a real easy way to just discount certain things. If they're not saying that our Messiah has come in the flesh and he's from Elohim, we can just automatically discount it. All right? We don't even have to look at it any further. It's called discernment. All right? And every spirit that does not confess that Yeshua Messiah has come in the flesh is not of Elohim. And this is the spirit of the anti-Messiah, which you heard is coming and now is already in the world. You are of Elohim, little children, and have overcome them, because he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. They are of the world, therefore they speak as of the world, and the world hears them. We are of Elohim. The one knowing Elohim hears us. He who is not of Elohim does not hear us. By this we know the spirit of truth and the spirit of delusion. Discernment. You can know what's true, and you can know what's the world's delusion simply by how they treat our Messiah. Really simple. All right? God is love. Beloved ones, let us love one another because love is of Elohim, and everyone who loves has been born of Elohim and knows Elohim. All right, little rabbit trail here. So about 2,000 years ago, we have this older gent who comes up to Messiah in the middle of the night, no less, and he wants to ask him some questions. And one of the things that our Messiah told him is that you must be born again. Now, I've heard just about every kind of way that this particular the message about being born again can be told. But I'm just going to say that everyone who loves has been born again. If you don't have the love of Elohim in the inside of you, you haven't been born again. I think it's really simple. All right? The one who does not love does not know Elohim, for Elohim is love. If you don't love the way Elohim says to love, you're not of him, and you really don't know him. I mean, I'm just pulling this out. I'm just highlighting this a little bit. By this, the love of Elohim was manifested in us, that Elohim has sent his only brought forth Son into the world in order that we might live through him. Come on. There we go. This is love, not that we loved Elohim, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be an atoning offering for our sins. So Elohim's love towards us is displayed by him sending his Son to die on behalf of us sinner people. Okay? So, you know, and you may have heard me say this before, but how can I say this better? Yah's love should never be in question. You should never, ever in your heart, in your mind, in your soul, in any part of your being, ever question as to whether he loves you or not. That's been displayed. The most precious thing that he had, he took it and he gave it on our behalf. His love for us should never be in question, but our love for him, that should always be in question. And that's why we're asking what love is. All right, no one has seen, let's see, beloved ones, if Elohim so loved us, we ought to love one another. No one has seen Elohim at any time. If we love one another, Elohim does stay in us, and his love has been perfected in us. His love. We're not talking about human man love here. We're talking about his love in us. All right? By this we know that we stay in him and he in us, because he has given us of his Spirit. And we have seen and bear witness that the Father has sent the Son, Savior of the world. Whoever confesses that Yeshua is the Son of Elohim, Elohim stays in him and he in Elohim. And we have known and believed the love that Elohim has for us. Here it is again. Elohim is love. He who stays in love stays in Elohim, and Elohim in him. By this, love has been perfected within us, in order that we might have boldness in the day of judgment, because he is, so are we in this world. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear holds punishment, and he who fears has not been made perfect in love. All right, stop here for a second. This world that we live in is full of fears. You know, we call them phobias, you know. And there's different kinds of fears. Okay, I want to kind of, you know, a lot of times we can get into bondage by having wrong thinking about things. If someone comes up behind me and goes, boo, and I jump, That's a type of fear, but that's not a sin. Okay? If you see, a snake crawling on the floor here, Yah forbid, and it causes your heart to race, there is nothing wrong with that type of fear. You recognize there's a danger there, it's okay. Okay? So just because you have a typical emotional human type of fear, don't worry about that. The fear that it's talking about here is a fear of punishment. Okay? Now, we are called to fear, and we may go over this if I got time. We are called to fear Yah. Okay? Now, that type of fear is what I call an extremely healthy type of respect. There's electrical outlets along this wall. Okay? You don't necessarily have to fear the electricity, but I would say that you're pretty foolish if you decide to go and put your hand in there and get whatever you're going to get after you get it. Okay? So there's a very healthy respect, a love even, that we're supposed to have for Yah. This is not just, a regular phobia. This is actually wisdom. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of Yah. So if you got any kind of wisdom, you're going to fear Yah. All right? Let's continue. We love him because he first loved us. If someone says, I love Elohim and hates his brother, he is a liar. For the one not loving his brother whom he has seen, how is he able to love Elohim who he has not seen? And we have this commandment from him, that the one loving Elohim should love his brother. Okay, now this is the Apostle John, the one who was called the beloved of the Messiah. So I think he might know a thing or two about love, and that he learned that very well. But one of the things we have here in this last, it says that we have a commandment. Do we really have a commandment about love? Well, of course we do. So let's look at that. All right. So we're going to go to Matthew chapter 22. Matthew chapter 22. And I'm not going to read all of Matthew. But let's go down to maybe starting at verse 37 or so. Okay, the great commandment. All right, so we've already established that Yah is love. Okay? Now that's kind of at the top. Anything that takes away from our knowledge or acknowledgement that Yah is love, we need to really investigate that to see if that needs to be in our lives. All right? Matthew chapter 22. So let's start at verse 30. Well, yeah, let's go to 34. But the Pharisees, having heard that he silenced the Sadducees, so there was a contention here. This is all out in public. That he had silenced the Sadducees, were gathered together. And one of them, one learned in the Torah, did question, trying him, saying, so this is a test. They're trying to trip him up. Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the Torah? And Yeshua said to him, you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being and with all your mind. This is the first and great command. The second is like it, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commands hang all the Torah and the prophets. All right, I got a little graphic here for you. Some of you may have seen this. Let's see if I can blow this up a little bit. Come on. There we go. All right, can everybody see this? So we started here with Yah's love, okay? The love for Yah and then the love for others is what all the other commands from Yah hang on. It does not do away with them. It does not replace them. It simply shows where they line up according to Yah's word. So obviously we have the love for Yah, we have the love for others, and then all the other statutes and judgments and the wonderful things that he has told us. They all line up under either loving Yah or loving others. All right? Any questions on that? All right. Let's go to Mark chapter 12. Mark chapter 12. I'm going to start around verse 28. Now this is a second look at the same instance. So we have what we call synoptic gospels, meaning they basically overlap one another. They all go through the life and times of Messiah, and many of them give the same stories, but just from slightly different point of view as the others. But I call them witnesses. And the word says that it's upon the word of two or more witnesses, a word is established. So I just call these second and tertiary witnesses for the same stuff. All right? The great commandment. Mark chapter 12, starting in verse 28. And one of the scribes coming near heard them reasoning together, knowing that he had answered them well, asked him, which is the first commandment of all? Let's see, why am I going the wrong way? And Yeshua answered him, first of all the commandments is, Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our Elohim, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being and with all your mind and with all your strength. This is the first command. And the second is like it. Let's see. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other command greater than these. So we know about the 10, but our Messiah is saying that there's 2 that's greater than the 10. And the reason is because the 10 are generated by the 2. If you are going to love Yah, then you're going to be doing what the first 4 commandments say. If you're going to be loving your neighbor as yourself, you're going to be doing what the last 6 say, in addition to the other statutes that we have to deal with. All right? There's no greater than these. And the scribe said to him, Well said, teacher, you have spoken the truth, for there is one Elohim, and there is none besides him. All right? So we have 2 things, and we got one thing that's kind of unspoken. All right? We have love for Yah, love for our neighbor as ourself, but in order to be able to love our neighbor as ourself, we have to be able to love ourselves, because if we're going to love them the way we love ourselves, we have to have a type of self-love. Okay? Now, in this day and time that we live in, it's kind of unfortunate that many people don't love themselves. You know, I think it's been kind of placed into us to have a kind of a self-preservation aspect about ourselves. You know, we're going to wash ourselves up, we're going to clean ourselves, we're going to keep ourselves out of harm's way and out of danger, and this is wisdom. Okay? But there are people out there that don't do these things for themselves, and they're pretty easy to spot. Sometimes easy to smell. Okay? I'm just saying. They don't take care of themselves. So if you don't take care of you, how can I ever hope that you will take care of me? If you don't love yourself in the right kind of way, how can I ever suspect that you will be able to love me in the right kind of way? And all of this obviously comes from our love for Yah. So if you don't love yourself the way Yah says to love yourself, you got a problem. And you can't love others the way he wants us to. Now, one of the things that Messiah did, let's go to John chapter 13. is he kind of took the monkey off of our shoulders a little bit by giving what he called a new commandment. Now, I'm going to say that this new commandment isn't as new as you think it is, and we're probably going to go over that in a little bit. Let's go to 34. A new commandment. All right. Now, we already know, according to Deuteronomy chapter 13, we're not supposed to add anything, and neither are we supposed to take anything away from Torah. Correct? Okay. Now, let's see, where I want to start. 34. Now, this is the TS 2009. A renewed command I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. All right. We're living in 2018. Okay. We honestly, and this is because of the culture we live here in the United States, we're bombarded with TV and all the media. We really honestly don't know what love is. But if I find out how the Messiah loved people, and I love people the same way he did, I'm covered. I may never know, well, I do know what love is, and hopefully you will too. But if you currently really don't know what love is, read the stories about our Messiah. Read and look at how he treated people and what he did with them. And if you mimic what he did, you're okay. Whether you know what love is or not. If you simply use him as your example, you're good. All right? Now, I came up in the 80s and 90s. I'm probably a product of the the 60s. They had a love revolution back then, but it's not the kind of love we're talking about. Okay? So, in my upbringing, I didn't really know what love was. And the only way I was able to get an understanding was by reading Scripture. Looking at how Yah treats people, looking at how Messiah treats people, and leaving that for me an example on how I'm supposed to behave, how I'm supposed to talk to people. All right. I think I've hit that one enough. All right. Let's go. Now, we talked about these are commands. So, if our Messiah was a faithful echo of Yahweh, we should be able to find the very same words that our Messiah spoke being spoken by Yahweh himself. So let's do that. Now, I'm going over this part because there's a lot of people that might be listening or might see that don't realize that the very same things that Messiah said while he was on earth are also the very same things that Yahweh said way back when. And I did a search when I was doing the Matthew 22. I'd like to use all the tools that are available to me. I used the internet to search for a cross-reference to what I just read in Matthew chapter 22. And guess what I found? 0. Are the references there? Yes, they are. But we have an enemy who has a vested interest in keeping us ignorant. So don't expect the internet to be your do-all, be-all for any type of Bible searches, because it's not going to work. Okay? So let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 6. Deuteronomy chapter 6. All right. Starts up. It's heading up the lineup. The greatest commandment. Deuteronomy 6:1. And this is the command, the laws, and the right rulings which Yahweh your Elohim has commanded to teach you to do in the land which you are passing over to possess. so that you fear Yahweh your Elohim to guard all his laws and commandments which I command you today, you and your son and your grandson all the days of your life, that your days be prolonged. And you shall hear, O Israel, and shall guard and do, that it might be well with you, and that you increase greatly, as Yahweh your Elohim of your fathers has spoken to you, in a land flowing with milk and honey. Okay, now this part, if you have any Jewish reference, they call this part Shema, because here is Shema in Hebrew. So if you ever heard the term Shema, this is what they're talking about. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our Elohim, Yahweh is one. Yahweh our Elohim, Yahweh is one. And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart. So are we commanded to love Yah? Yes, we are. All right. Deuteronomy 6:6. These words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart. In one of my previous messages, I talked a little bit about the idea of circumcision, but circumcision of the heart. We have to have our hearts circumcised, and the way that we do that is by literally inscribing the commands of Yah on our heart. Whatever it takes to do that, that's what you need to do. If you need to memorize Scripture to make that happen, do that. If you need to read it every day before you go to bed at night, do that. Whatever it takes for you to be so imprinted with the word on the inside, that's what you need to do. All right? Let's go to Leviticus chapter 19. Okay, this is around verse 18. Okay, now this is in Leviticus, the title. Now this wouldn't be actually, this was the love your neighbor as yourself is just a helper for us, all right? When you reap the harvest of your land, do not completely reap the corners of the field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. And do not glean your vineyards or gather every grape from your vineyard. Leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am Yahweh your Elohim. This is loving your neighbor as yourself. This is a method of doing that. All right, let's go to 11. Do not steal, do not lie, do not deceive one another. This is how we love each other. This is how you love your neighbor as yourself. Do not swear falsely by my name and so profane my name, profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yahweh. If you're going to do something, it's kind of like one of those let your yea be yea and your no be no. Okay? Now, it says don't swear falsely. We are actually told we can swear by his name. I would suggest that you use that very, very sparsely, because you're making a deal that you might not be able to keep. So I would suggest if you're going to swear, do it very, 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 very rarely. Okay? But if you do, make sure you're going to die before you give that word up that you said you would do. Okay? All right. So do not oppress your neighbor or rob him. The wages of him who is hired is not to remain with you all night until morning. I don't know about you, but I get a weekly paycheck. So the people that I work for don't stick with this. I don't get paid every day. I had one job in my life where I got paid every day. Do not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block before the blind, but fear Elohim, I am Yahweh. Do not unrighteousness in the right ruling. Do not be partial to the poor to favor the face of the great, but rightly rule your neighbor in righteousness. Okay? Don't favor people. Don't slander among your people. Do not stand against the blood of your neighbor. I am Yahweh. Do not hate your brother in your heart. Reprove your neighbor for certain and bear no sin because of him. Do not take vengeance or bear a grudge against the children of your people, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. This is where our Messiah got it. Any questions? All right. Let's go on. All right. Now, I've been talking a lot so far about loving your neighbor as yourself. But many people say that they love Yah, but they really have no idea what that means. And for the benefit of anyone, for some of you, this is going to be a refresher, so accept it like that. But for some others, they really they say they love him, but it's this emotional type of thing, okay? If you really want to know what love is, let's do a little bit of reading. All right. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 10. I want you to know that this whole chapter is really, really good. And I would really love to read it all, but I'm not. Okay? Now this section, this is not in the original, this is just something to help us out. It's called circumcise your heart. I just mentioned circumcision of the heart a minute ago. Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 12. And now, Israel, what is Yahweh your Elohim asking of you but to fear Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in all his ways, and to love him? We got a word there, but the rest of this tells us how to do it. And to serve Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being. To guard the commandments of Yahweh and his laws, which I command you today for good. If you're loving Yah, you are guarding, you are keeping, you are maintaining his commands. Okay, maybe we need to see that somewhere else. Okay, this is all still Deuteronomy chapter 10. See, the heavens and the heavens of heavens belong to Yahweh your Elohim, also the earth, that all that is in it. Yahweh delighted in your fathers to love them, and he chose their seed after them. And you shall circumcise the foreskin of your heart and harden your neck no more. Okay, so we're talking about circumcision of the heart, right? For Yahweh your Elohim is Elohim of mighty ones and master of masters, the great El, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality nor takes a bribe. All right, so it's telling you about Yah. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 11, next chapter. Verse 1, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim and guard his charge, even his laws and his right rulings and his commands, always. If you say that you love Yahweh and you are not guarding his charge and his laws and his right rulings and his commands, always, I'm going to say that your love is in question. Because this is the way he said that he wants to be loved. All right. Let's go to 11:13. And it shall be that if you diligently obey my commands, which I command today, to love Yahweh your Elohim and serve him with all your heart and with all your being, then there's a promise of a blessing. I'm not even going to read the blessing. You can read it for yourself. But I just want to make sure that you see that if you diligently obey his commands, that's a sign of your love. 22. If you diligently guard all these commands which I command you to do, to love Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in his ways, and to cling to him, then there's a promise. You can read the promise for yourself. I just want you to know that if you diligently guard, that is a sign of your love. Any questions? All right. I don't want to be a dead horse. I'm going to wrap up here. Yeah. Loving yourself. Let's go to Daniel chapter 12. Let's see, Daniel. Where are you, Daniel? Chapter 12. Okay, this is the last chapter in the book of Daniel. Let's see if I can find it. All right, Daniel chapter 12, verse 2. All right, so there's a little bit that goes before this, and I'm not going to give you a context. But it says, many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth wake up, some to everlasting life, and some to reproaches and everlasting abhorrence. Okay? So there's two types of people. There's one group of people, when they wake up, let's assume that they're dead, and there is going to be a resurrection. When they wake up, some are going to wake up to everlasting life. And some, not so nice. If you love yourself, then this should matter to you, how you wake up. Now, I'm going to tell you, our Messiah was wonderful, and he spoke to a young man. Now, obviously, Daniel was already written when Messiah got here. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, all the religious people were very well aware of the book of Daniel. And we have one of the people. Let's go to Matthew chapter 19. Starting around verse 16. Okay, the rich young man. And see, one came to him saying, Good teacher, what shall I do to have everlasting life? Now, Daniel just told us that there's going to be two groups of people, and one of the groups is going to have everlasting life. Okay? And this man comes to Messiah saying, what do I have to do to get the everlasting life that's talked about in Daniel? Okay? He said to him, why do you call me good? No one is good except one, Elohim. But if you wish to enter life, guard the commands. This is Messiah to a direct question. If you want everlasting life, if you want to have your place in his kingdom set, guard the commands. Yahweh bless.